What's the budget reduce look like?
It would be over $100,000 easy, for a client to have, a competitive streaming service website.
What's speed to market?
3 months to 3 weeks.
Wow. Or what is AI coding, AI development for your definition?
In my instance, it was also leveraging multiple LLMs to work with each other.
Like, what's missing from the previous traditional way to develop software to now we're using AI?
It's that nuance of what we need from an entertainment perspective to translate into code. And that was always the biggest challenge, is how do we do that? So we like less than 5% of that is what we use to build this new version.
If they stick to the end of this video, what's the biggest lesson that they're going to learn in this video?
If you don't have your AI strategy yet, whether you're a developer or whether you're a product manager or a C-level manager in a company, then I think the world is going to drastically change in front of your eyes, and you will probably be completely blindsided.
Exactly, it's vibe coding.
Okay.
Hello, Joe. Welcome to this show. Great to have you. And let's make a deal with the audience here. So if they stick to the end of this video, what's the biggest lesson that they're going to learn in this video?
I think the biggest lesson you're going to learn is that if you don't have your AI strategy yet, whether you're a developer or whether you're a product manager or C-level manager in a company, then I think the world is going to drastically change in front of your eyes, and you will probably be completely blindsided. It's moving that fast. We were very much not aware of all of these things until we jumped into it, and then once you jump into it, you really are shocked in terms of how fast this is moving and what's possible. So better have your strategy set now.
Yeah, strategy. Yeah, gotcha. I'm excited. Well, let's get into the first part, right? So maybe tell us a bit more about yourself.
Sure.
What happened? What did you achieve so far? So that for audience who are watching who doesn't have any context, just fill them in with who you are. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I started a company called Studio Pro with two co-founders 15 years ago. And the company was really born out of our frustration being in the entertainment space. I was in post-production before that, and two of my other co-founders were in production in Los Angeles and in Vancouver, Canada. And we were somewhat frustrated where independent media was going, especially in the distribution side of things, where we felt that because of the advent of the first disruption that we went through in the space, where everybody could pick up a camera and be a filmmaker or a podcaster or produce things, there really wasn't ways to monetize that content in the same way that we were akin to or used to in the old model, when you would get theatrical distribution or be on television. And so we decided to take our content owner hats off and turn into technologists and solve the issue for ourselves, because we saw adjacent companies like YouTube was just starting at the time, and Netflix was, just making the transition from DVD distribution to streaming. And we wanted to build a streaming platform for ourselves. Because we came from entertainment, we really didn't get the funding that we wanted in the beginning. So we decided to take our know-how and what we wanted to do and have people buy into it. And it was our peers that basically bought into our technology. And we basically licensed our streaming tech to other companies. And it's taken us 15 years to kind of come full circle now with Chillfree, where because of AI, we're able to really pivot our company more and focus on Chillfree and relaunching Chillfree the way we had really envisioned it about 15 years ago. So it's quite remarkable.
Nice. A lot of years experience. Like, did you have any technical backgrounds before Chillfree? What was your experience?
Yeah.
Prior
So,
to that?
I'm the CTO and the CEO of the company, but, when I first started this, in the same way that I started my post-production company, I literally had zero experience in development. Was not a coder. I've always been technical all of my life, and even when I was working as an editor and started Deep Sky Digital, which was my post-production company, I have a knack to sort of get myself into trouble, so to speak, and I also have a knack of hiring really, really talented people to fix whatever disaster I've created, and that's how I've learned, and throughout my whole experience. And so when we started Studio Pro, which is the parent company of Chillfree, so Studio Pro is our streaming service company. So Studio Pro basically services other companies in launching their own owned and operated streaming services, their own Netflix, their own Tubi TV. We provide the back-end infrastructure for that, all the transcoding processes, the CMS, the streaming, transcoding, and also the apps and the app experience for that as well. And so when we first started this, we, really, came from a complete naive perspective of like, hey, look, we just have a problem we need to solve. Nobody's solving it. And that's how you really become an entrepreneur is, you have this problem and you wake up every morning hoping somebody else would solve it. And then, after a while you go like, I guess I have to do something about it because it's not helping what I need. And before you know it, you're so further down the path of a startup, essentially. And so we did that for a long time and, obviously learned a lot in the technical space, gone through the whole evolution of streaming media and all the technologies, both back end and front end, going from PHP to JavaScript, from Angular to, to Node.js, to that whole sort of arc, just on the front end aspect of streaming services. And and then cut to now where I literally rebuilt all of Chill-Free TV, starting on the web from scratch using a single prompt.
Yeah.
Let me backtrack. I didn't one-shot prompt Chill-Free. Let's just be clear on that. But it started with a single prompt that literally was just me investigating what's possible that led me through this whole rabbit hole of actually relaunching a whole streaming service 3 weeks later.
Yeah. So, I want to clarify one thing. You mentioned many years. So how many years did you guys spend, with Chill-Free, from day one with zero experience in technologies?
That's a great question. So Chill-Free is a brand new product that we've just launched, but as a streaming service, we've rebuilt Chill-Free in one form or fashion for other companies and other clients probably 100 times over. It's the same thing. There's really no, if you go to Netflix, you go to Hulu, you go to Paramount Plus or any of the streaming services, I mean, there's just sort of like the meat and potatoes of a streaming service, right? Or what they call a fast streaming service now. And so we've rebuilt this over and over and over and over again, many times with, acquiring technical debt on the back end, having to, start and stop different features. And Chill-Free really is like the first time we've been able to iterate so fast and get to all the features that we wanted to do. One, because it's our own product, so we weren't beholden to, any sort of requirements or third-party requirements by clients. These were all our in-house requirements, so that sped the process up. Obviously, since we have a 15-year, very mature API backend and content management system, that definitely helped as well. But in terms of building the front end, we've never been able to build anything this fast and this fully featured until now.
So, would you say total 15 years in the streaming service overall, or?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of experience. So I mean, you definitely touch a lot of technologies, right? Like front end technologies, a lot of back end technologies, and then now you guys have to focus on Chill-Free, which is completely using AI to develop the entire project, right?
Yes.
Which is really amazing, and we'll get into more of this in this video, of course. So let's dive straight in. Since you guys have so many experience with development and technology, what was broken? What's missing from just normal way people developing software to now we're just using AI to writing code or vibe coding? What's missing from the previous traditional way to develop software to now we're using AI?
Yeah, so that's a great. So really, streaming services really is a collision of Hollywood entertainment and tech. So when you really think about it, the experience that you're going through when you are consuming content in a streaming service is directly related with what people in the entertainment business consider as a good user experience for consuming content. A lot of this was sort of adopted from the Blockbuster model of walking into a Blockbuster store and how you would look at and choose content. For entertainment purposes, how you recommended content, which aisles you should walk into first, what's in front of you, dovetails to how poster art is put in front of you. I mean, all of these things are considerations that I think the tech community, especially engineers and developers, really didn't grapple with until this collision sort of happened. So the biggest thing that's broken really is that the handoff of that sort of, how should I call it? It's that nuance of what we need from an entertainment perspective to translate into code. And that was always the biggest challenge, is how do we do that? And the way you fix that, obviously, is that, you go through prototyping, you go through mocks, you'll use Figma, you'll use all sorts of tools to sort of arrive at a static sort of representation of how this user experience is supposed to happen. But, as we know, that never translates 100% once you start coding and you start developing it. And then you start going into all of these things where you now have to come up with so many things that you're not happy with, just because you have to concede things that are not technologically feasible, or within the limitations of your team, within the limitations of what they understand. And again, they don't come from entertainment. You're having to educate them on that side of it. So that part is where I feel like this experience with AI just completely eliminated that whole layer of complexity.
So you mean more like the context on creating softwares, on creating, softwares that are related to the streaming service, right?
Correct.
Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I see. Awesome. So in that case, like maybe for those people who are, new to this concept of AI development, maybe we can just quickly give a quick rundown. What exactly is vibe coding? Or what is AI coding, AI development for your definition?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So there's so many different definitions that I've come across to lately, and I've always wondered why is it called vibe coding. I mean, now I get it. I have my own explanation of why it's called vibe coding. But really, for me, it's a combination of it's prompt engineering in a sense, right? So in the same way that you would be using ChatGPT, for any person that's using ChatGPT right now. And it's really, there's a whole layer to prompt engineering that I feel like is acquired through just experience, where you kind of like start figuring out all the tips and tricks that are very, very idiosyncratic to the person that's interfacing with the AI. And so I think that's where the vibe sort of comes in the sense that, there's lots of YouTube videos that sort of show you, a lot of people's recipes of, creating, PRDs and using different MCPs to sort of like, create your whole entire task management and all of that sort of stuff. And that kind of went all out the window for me. Like it really, I had to find my own vibe of how to prompt and how to communicate. So, and in my instance, it was also leveraging multiple LLMs to work with each other. And so the way I approached it is that, I had my main offshore developer, which was my sort of like prompt engineering window that I was using to generate most of the code. I had a separate one that I can sort of like name which ones I'm using if you're interested. I'm curious. But I had another one that I was using to basically, help me with the prompts, to create the prompts initially, create the product requirement initially. And then I also use Cursor locally so that I could, look at the code locally, make adjustments locally, but also use, an AI agent locally through Cursor to also, do code review and, especially like really small things. And by the way, none of this would have been possible if I didn't have repo access and if my agents didn't have repo access to read and write off of our repository. To me, that was like the linchpin. I think a lot of people try to create such huge projects that is completely unwieldy and impossible to manage if you don't have a way for your AI to actually collaborate through a repo. So the fact that I was able to do that, I was able to, have it write to the repo. I was able to check it out. And then if there was something where I felt like, it was like minutia stuff, like, pixel moving or stuff in CSS that just needed to be adjusted, I would just use a local code editor to do that rather than, having somebody, basically push code like every 5 seconds, right? So eventually I found my own workflow, and at some point it got so automated, and we can get into that, where it was just, I almost
we'll get into more of that.
Okay, I'll let you.
We'll stop right there. It's just a brief intro, like for people who don't understand what vibe coding is, or who's new to this, kind of give them a refresher. But that was really good. Summarize it like prompt engineering, writing really detailed, specific product requirement documentations, using MCP tools to doing better for the development workflows, and find what works for prompts, context, and then using tools to create better prompts, right, for AI coding developments, right? So that's really essential. But speaking of prompts, one of my audience, I posted a community post on my YouTube channel. One of my audience was asked a question, how do you write good prompt for the AI to get what you want? How do you do that?
I ask it. I ask AI to generate the different. I mean, that's the crazy thing. You can even ask the same AI agent on how to prompt it
to generate the better prompts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. You know, using AIs to generate the prompts. Basically, you try to, you know, get AI to ask like some questions. Hey, ask me some questions, then generate the prompts, and then they will ask some questions, then you answer those questions, and
Correct.
it would generate better prompts. That's
100%.
basically how I use it. Like, what about you? Like, do you have any tools? Do you have any tricks, tips on, you know, how we can be able to get AI to generate better prompts?
I use all of the above. Sometimes I use, you know, I mean, here's the great thing about this is that these things generate so fast that, you know, one prompt failure is not catastrophic. You can keep on prodding and trying different approaches until you get the result that you want. But I think what you just mentioned earlier in regards to context, it's all about context. It's all about you feeling comfortable that the AI understands the context. And once it understands the context and you feel confident that it understands the context, then the prompts work 100%, you know, then they work really, really, really well. And you can tell when it's not working really, really, really well. It's you know, again, you know, not to harp on the whole thing of vibe, but eventually you start getting a feel for it. You start getting a feel for when it gets off to the wrong direction, and you have to take responsibility for that. It's usually your prompts. You know, it's like I said, you can't get mad at an inanimate, you know, a machine. It's usually probably human error of some point where the context is not completely understood. So to me, you know, asking another AI to generate a prompt, or even asking the exact same AI to just go like, hey, wait a minute, can you explain to me exactly what it is that you think we're trying to do? And then with that, I can kind of fine tune, because now I know what context it's working within, and I can understand. Now I know if it's completely wrong or if it's like, you know, oh, that's close. And now I go like, okay, that's great. Well, actually, what we're trying to do, can you give me a prompt that I can give you so that we can execute this correctly, exactly the way we're talking about right now?
Yeah.
And it works. It's amazing.
Well, what are some tools like speaking of you know, prompt engineering? Like, do you find that which model works better when it comes to giving you better prompt?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, you know, sometimes I think paid top, you know, team plans work better than just the free trial, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely true. You know, I mean, even with Cursor, you know, I was using it locally, and I was like literally just using whatever free I could use on that on a daily basis, and I definitely felt a huge difference when I subscribed to the Pro plan, and I was able to choose, you know, the AI agent that I wanted. I think there's certain things it does really well. That's really tough to answer, because, you know, I could have spent a lot of time just like trying to figure out what one AI does better than the other. But then the next time it does it, and it does it better than, you know, sometimes they'd swap. All of a sudden, this does it better and this does it better. So I really don't think there's any magic recipe. And plus, these things are evolving so fast, so I can't really tell you, you know, which ones are best used for which.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's move on to the other question that my audience asked. So how do you take, you know, a big goal and chop it up into small jobs for AI agents to perform?
That's
like
perfect.
you mentioned about task management, maybe taking like a vague idea, you know, you start to do some prompt engineering, getting down to like product requirement doc, specific plan for the product. Correct. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, so that's fantastic. So yeah, product requirement documents are really, really key. I think you need to start with some sort of vision. I didn't with Chillfree. I literally just started like, I mean, I wasn't planning on building this, you know. I wanted to just build a simple page for me just so I could see, you know, an API payload off of one of our API routes visualized in a different way. I mean, that's really all I wanted to test on it. But when it delivered what it delivered to me, I was like, oh my God, like this is nicer and better than anything we've built before. And it kind of just went from there. And then I created a product requirement document, you know, because then I suddenly took it seriously. But yes, really defining what your product requirement is. Again, you know, I'm a big suggester of using multiple AIs to do this. Start with one, take it into the other one, have the other one look at it and make refinements on it, see if it understands it. Have it regurgitate to you. These things write reports so fast, and it costs so little to write a report that you could create a product requirement document with one AI, stick it into another AI, and have that AI give you a documented report of what it thinks that PRD file is. And then from there, you can get a good idea of how solid your PRD is, right? And then now you can take that PRD, whether in that same AI or a different AI, and have it chop it up into tasks. What are, the tasks, create subtasks after that. There's a great tutorial on YouTube. I wish I remember the gentleman. I absorbed so many of these videos at one shot that I can't remember who. So I actually watched a bunch of your videos too in the beginning.
Oh, thanks.
Especially on MCPs, your introduction to MCP. Because I was looking at, there was an MCP task manager, I think, that you can import into Cursor. I believe it's Task Manager, where it literally takes a PRD and then chops it up into tasks. And then you can use AI to sort of scrutinize each task and see if it can still be further broken down into subtasks. And what's cool about it is that it remembers everything, and then it gives you check marks every time you're able to complete a task. So it's very rewarding to kind of see it go through certain things. I ended up abandoning that at some point, and I started creating my own sort of workflow onto that. But still with the whole concept of like breaking things into tasks. I mean, this is just 15 years of experience of working with engineers and developers, that this is just second nature to really have a successful product, is that you need to be able to chop it down into really achievable tasks.
Well, I actually did want to mention, I did made a video called how to use TaskMaster. I think that was the
TaskMaster. That's what it was.
MCP server that I showed on
Yes.
on my channel, to take a PRD file and then break it down into task. And what's really cool about that one is that it can also break down into subtask.
Correct.
So if that task is really complex, it can be able to break it down into subtasks, and it also gives you an evaluation on how much effort, how much difficulty, or like things needed for this task. And it also gives you a dependency. Like, for example, before you do this task, you need to perform this task first.
Correct.
Which is really cool. I think it's called TaskMaster.
I think it was. You're absolutely correct. It was called TaskMaster.
Yeah, I made a video on that, but feel free to check it out if you guys are interested. But yeah, let's continue. Was the task management. So you start with an MVP, and then take product you built, convert into a PRD file, and then you ask AI to give you a report on that.
Correct.
And then you continue to improve the PRD until you get to a point where maybe the AI says you're good to go. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you take that PRD file, you break it down, and then what do you do then?
Well, what I did then is I pumped the brakes is what I did then, and I need a repo. That's the thing that I did next. And luckily, the AI that I was using could read and write to a repo, could connect to my repo. So that was a blessing right then and there, because I didn't have to switch gears.
What was the tool that you used to?
I use Manus. Yeah.
Manus. Nice.
Yeah, Manus AI,
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, you let it to read and write
Correct.
to GitHub repository.
Correct.
And
Which, for your viewers think too, the free version does not come with repo access, or privileges. Like, you need to get either the team plan or, I forget which plan it is that unlocks that. It doesn't really even say it anywhere, because we were going to do that for a bunch of our engineers, and they were going like, well, I can't access the repo like you do. And then I realized, it was the plan that I was on that enabled that. But yes, I mean, once you have that plan, it's able to read and write into a repo.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first thing, because I was thinking to myself, okay, if I am now going to build something that is going to require branches, that's the first thing that went to my head. It was just like, okay, like I said, I've rebuilt, or as a company, we rebuilt a chill-free type streaming service 100 times over. So in many ways, I already have it in my head. Like, I don't even need a task breakdown, It's already been in my head over and over and over again. I know exactly which features I need to tackle next, what comes next, all of that sort of stuff. And right away, instinctively, I was like, well, there's no way this is going to even work if I can't have some form, of redundancy of code and a way to have branches, because I need to be able to jump from one feature to another, and I need to be able to branch out code. So that was really super important.
You mean like Git, right? Like be able to create Git branches.
Correct.
And then, for example, production branch, beta branch, or different
I mean,
features.
and those are just the top level branches. But every time I started a feature, I created a brand new branch out of that, because you got to remember too, there are context limits to each one of these chats.
Oh.
So, we can get into that of how I sort of overcome that, because that's a big problem. Like, if you're building something that, I mean, 3 weeks I was coding chill free, right? So with AI, you're going to go through so many threads, and each thread is a context that then now you sort of have to start from scratch. Now, another bonus point of Manus, and not to tout Manus, I wish I had my Manus t-shirt on because they sent me one because I have the pro plan.
Nice.
Is it does have context handover, which is really super cool. So as it runs out of context, in one thread, where it now asks you to start a new thread, it actually auto creates a new thread and it hands over knowledge to the next thread, which is super powerful.
Is it like a file that you download and then you just import it?
No, it does it itself. It does it itself. So, but by far is it perfect in the beginning. So here's my experience with this from day 1 to week 3, right? So from day 1, every time it did that, it forgot everything to the point where I was like, what's the point of this context? It's like completely forgetting it. It even forgot how to like write to the repo. Like it lost, its Sage key. It almost like it had to like turn off servers and then fire servers back up completely from scratch, from fresh. It was almost like if you're like in a relationship with somebody and then you wake up the next morning and they don't remember who you are.
Exactly. So like having solid like a memory, right?
Total memory erasure. It's like a movie 50 First Dates with we're literally like they don't remember anything.
Now speaking of memory, let's give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, ByRover. ByRover has built a central memory layer for modern dev teams using coding agents. Now chances are you have been in this situation. You're coding with an AI IDE like Cursor or Claude Code, and you have spent all your time carefully describing your project context, but the next day when you start a new session, all of the knowledge is gone. And you have to waste time explaining everything from scratch, or maybe you're working with your team, but all the valuable lessons from past interactions, the best practices, the bug fixes are all siloed. They aren't shared across the team, so your colleagues' agents keeps making the same mistake over and over again. And you know that basic rule files like claude.md file just aren't enough for the massive codebase. Or maybe you start in Cursor, switch over to Gemini CLI or any other agents, and none of that context carry over. But ByRover here solves all that. What if your AI agents can actually remember all that context permanently? With ByRover, your project knowledge is saved. Everything from high-level programming concepts to specific business logics, past interactions, bug fixes, even the model's own reasoning steps. This gives your agents maximum context, enabling smarter, more accurate code as your project grows. You can think of it as a unified memory layer shared across all your favorite coding IDEs like Cursor, Claude Code, VS Code, and more. So it scales right alongside your codebase. For all my fellow open source fans, ByRover just launched Cypher, an open source memory layer that you can plug directly into your IDE with zero configuration. Both of these tools are designed to make your coding agents more intelligent and genuinely useful. It's completely free to get started, so to check out the link in the description to try it out.
And it says, handing knowledge over, and then I discovered, obviously, it has the same thing like ChatGPT called Memories, where you can actually save knowledge information. And what's cool about Manus is that as it goes along and it sees something important or it deems as something important, it will automatically say possible knowledge or add to knowledge. And it's up to you. It requires human intervention at that point to save it to knowledge or not. And then that's where I started realizing that the more you save to knowledge, the more it hands over to the next thread. It starts remembering things better and better and better. But to bolster that, the other thing I started to do too is that every time I would, finish a sprint or finish a feature, particularly if it's something that it struggled with. And I'll give you an example of one thing it struggled with the most is our API. Right? Completely foreign to it, had never used it in the past, hallucinated a lot because it made huge assumptions on how the taxonomy would be, because obviously it was familiar with Netflix, familiar with, all the popular streaming platforms, and it made huge assumptions on how the taxonomy should perform in the back end and how that would translate to, how our API would be structured. And I'm talking about the metadata, content metadata coming into the system, that it started hallucinating a lot and it struggled with it, and it would forget how to use an endpoint over and over and over and over again. So what I started to do is every time I would finish a feature that required something that it struggled with, I had it write documentation for itself. And I would have it save it to the repo along with the code base. So I created a folder inside my directory, my project directory, that was called AI tools. I just named it that, AI tools. And so I had a bunch of different prompts in there. Like I had a master prompt in case it completely forgot everything, or in case I needed to use a completely different AI. So I had a master prompt in there. And then I had documents, MD files of all the things that it had built that it struggled with. So the minute I would notice it not remember or misremember something, I would just have it read that file over and over again.
I see.
And then we'd be back in business. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much like every new feature merged to the production or master branch, it will basically update the documentation.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And with each new feature I built, I created a new branch in the repo.
Exactly. Using Manus.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I would do branch merges after that if I felt comfortable that now this could be merged into it. But this way, I knew he was only AI was only dealing with this particular thing, and we're able to like really hyper focus on this and the documentation. I mean, and it's a great blessing too, because it can write documents so fast that in 15 years that we've rebuilt this thing over and over and over again, I've never had such good documentation on our API and on our streaming services than I have now. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's very awesome to hear. But what about like deployment? I'm not quite familiar with I don't have the Manus Pro plan. Mostly when I do development, I was basically just, commit it manually, manage the branches. But what about the deployment, the CI/CD pipeline?
It does it itself.
Manus also handle that? Or do you have to?
That. Yeah, it handles that.
So it handles like pretty much every deployment.
Are you talking about to actual production, deployment to production? No. We handle deployment to production and into dev. I mean, anything that's actually going outside of local development, that's actually going live to the web, is handled by our engineering team. So it's me and my lead engineer Matt that deals with that, and Matt, my lead engineer, architected the whole deploy pipeline to production and to dev, so. Okay,
so still human involved into...
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's the one thing where we didn't want to and maybe that's something that we can look into in the future, with some form of automation. But, I think that's where we were like, hey, let's reserve this for us humans and make sure we do that correctly.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, sometimes for CI/CD pipeline, there could be situations where maybe the build failed or the test wasn't passing. Correct. Or maybe based on my work experience, I have development teams where, we have some heavy testings that run in, for example, like beta version.
Correct.
Or before pre-prod, that it maybe take like a day or two to run to get the full results.
Yeah.
So usually we don't do that in development. It's kind of like more like a big test. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle that, right? There's some times where maybe there could be errors or a human involved in to look into the logs on why that happens, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's this is a collaboration. I mean, a lot of people think that a lot of this stuff can really be completely abstracted from human intervention, and that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, none of this. First of all, I just want to go on the record. None of this could even be possible if I didn't have really good engineers that work with. I mean, like I have, Matt Stoic, who is our back-end engineer, who wrote a big chunk of our API. Without him, God only knows what I would have ended up with. But having said that, I mean, his mind is blown away with this thing too. I mean, and he uses Cursor, a very different approach from my approach, on this. I would say like, Chill-Free is probably 90% coded by either Manus or Claude, combination of both, mostly Manus, but he used Cursor in a very different way where he really wanted to see firsthand, code being written, and he's able to intervene, in real time with what's going on, as opposed to me where I literally sometimes, I mean, I can see, you work with Manus, you can see his computer, you can see Manus's computer.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see what's going on, but, lots of times, that's the time for you to take a break while he's churning something, and then you just pull code, and then now you're surprised, right?
Yeah.
So a very different paradigm from the way Matt would have approached it if he had done this from the beginning. Yeah.
That's true. Well, let's move on to the next part. I want to talk about the playbook for, getting real business results, like saving money from previous traditional development, or how does this method help you to find customers or retain customers? What difference does it make to the current business model right now?
Well, this is a huge breakthrough for us.
Yeah.
The thing that we struggle with the most is like the majority of our clients come from entertainment, and I've been in post-production for many more years than I have, in this business.
Yeah.
Even before that, and the idea of entertainment is to dream up big things, right? And that's the type of customers that we have. They want everything and everything to do cartwheels and do all sorts of stuff, and to the point where nobody's really happy. Everybody wants Netflix for no money. I mean, they don't really even realize how many engineers work behind the scenes with Netflix. So for us to be able to collapse that, to come very, very close to feature parity to their expectations, and then to go beyond that and be able to now, okay, what's your differentiator? Like, what makes you different as a streaming service? What's your secret sauce? That's where, a lot of our clients don't even get to, because they're just scrambling with the tech to kind of get to the point where they feel comfortable with it. So I think it helps with budgets, it helps with speed to market, and I really think at the end of the day, it really gets some of our customers that really have a chance of really being competitive in this very super competitive marketplace to really have an edge.
Yeah. So in terms of, not sure if you can share, but maybe like a rough estimate, how much time did it improve for speed to the market? What's the budget reduce look like? Maybe like a percentage wise?
Yeah.
Just to give people an idea. Yeah.
I haven't looked at it in percentages, but
let's start with the speed to market for.
Yes. So let's just say just the website, right? Just the chill-free website. That would have been, close to a 6-digit price tag to build. And,
the budget.
Yeah, the budget. Yeah.
Okay.
Close to that, very close to that, and that would be our, that's even our, like, if we were to outsource that to just a development team, that wouldn't even be tacking on. So it would be over $100,000 easy, for a client to have. A competitive streaming service website. So we it's like less than 5% of that is what we use to build this new version.
Oh, okay. So 100,000 for just traditional way of building, but then only 5% of that is, if we were to use AI or vibe coding to build chill-free, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah. I mean, that's not obviously factoring in, our expertise costs, my time, our time, engineering time. I mean, there's a whole host of everything that obviously would drive that price up. But at the same time, when you think about it, that's what it cost me to rebuild this.
Like just the subscriptions, the AI models, like pretty much the fees, right?
That's correct.
Expense.
Yes. That's the expense.
Excluding the salaries or human.
Excluding the salaries, that's correct.
Exclude salaries. Okay. And what about speed to market? You mentioned that it takes
3 months to 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how long does it, usually you think it takes?
It takes about 3 months. Like, we've built this thing many times over before. I mean, it's usually a 3-month cycle to build this from scratch, beginning to end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, okay. I see. So 3 month,
and
cut
it
it
took
down
us
to
3 weeks, literally, to relaunch Chill-Free.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Got it. That's almost like 60% decrease.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. What about some other, things you wanted to mention? Maybe like about the marketing side of things. Have you tried to use vibe marketing? Have you tried with?
Yeah. So that's our next. We're tackling that right now. As we've gone live with this, is we're doing a lot of automated marketing. We're integrating. I'm gonna watch a lot of your N8N videos now, Eric, because I'm gonna dig into that. So creating those funnels, so we're super excited to really dig into that. And also on the advertising side, those are our two biggest things that we are hyper focused on right now. Is our marketing and our ads. Yeah. And when I'm talking about ads, it's our whole ad infrastructure, revamping that for Chill-Free, revamping that on an entire scale for our whole entire company, on how we deliver ads and how ads are, because we primarily deal with ad-supported platforms, right?
Like what kind of platforms?
Like if you go to Tubi TV or Hulu or even Prime, you see ads, right? So the same way that YouTube has ads. So, but for movies and television shows. So we, having a really robust ad infrastructure, is the way these products monetize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you think that is different compared to any other service or products for doing their marketing?
Well, it's the whole ads thing is a whole Pandora's box. I mean, we could spend a whole hour just talking about how the ad infrastructure works. I mean, a lot of it is based on VAST protocol, These are basically ads that are run through servers called either client side or server side that basically stitch together XML files that call on the creatives. It's a very archaic system. It's kind of crazy. And so, there's very little that we can change on that side of it, but the way we interface with it and how we deliver it, where we minimize the issues on the tech side in terms of the delivery, is something that I'm really excited to dig into. And then the other thing too is contextually, like how do we make ads more contextual? How can we now leverage more AI to, really identify the user and the type of ads that they're seeing? I mean, it's nothing new. A lot of people are doing that, but incorporating AI to help solve these puzzles is going to be very exciting.
Very exciting, yes. Wanted to move on to another topic about, challenges and looking ahead. So wanted to, touch base on some real challenges that you still see today for using vibe coding or get AI to code for you, because nothing's perfect. Maybe tell me a time or a situation where maybe just AI doesn't work completely, where humans have to be involved into this. Other than what we just mentioned about the CI/CD pipeline, of course.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, there's several. The things that come to mind to me right away, obviously, the context issue is a big thing, right? There's ways around it, obviously, So, that's where the human has to work somehow. But that's a challenge. That's a challenge more from an engineering perspective. So for developers, we employ several, we have a pretty fairly small team, but we have engineers, that work in Studio Pro. And when we first introduced this, there was definitely that challenge, right? Because it uses a different part of the brain, and it, being able to work with context correctly is luckily a learned skill. Because what's amazing is that, I've seen our team really embrace this and develop with it, in such a great way that I'm really, really proud of what they've been able to do, especially in the last couple of weeks. But in the beginning, it was a little scary because we weren't sure whether, if this was going to work or not. So yes, that's definitely a challenge, more from an organizational standpoint, is now really identifying resources and making sure that, your team is able to work within this new paradigm, right? And thrive within this new paradigm. And if they can, our expectation that we set forth in Studio Pro is a 300% increase in productivity. We're really excited about meeting that, and I think we are. That's a challenge. The context limits within AI is definitely a challenge, but you can circumnavigate that around that. Some limitations that it has when it comes to visual aspect of things, really, really great at prototyping within context, right? So like I said, when I asked it to build that first homepage for me, and it surprised me with how beautiful the UI was, that was all based on its context of what it's supposed to do. And it's amazing. And I didn't even give it a prompt on, what framework to use, nothing. Like literally it chose Node 16, it used Tailwind, it used a whole bunch of different things that just worked perfectly for what I needed. Even the carousels, what it used out of the box for the carousels, with no prompting whatsoever, built a beautiful page from scratch. But then now to make minutia changes on that, where you have to sort of like move things a little bit here, move things a little bit right, you want a different user experience on this, that's where it's a little challenged.
Yeah,
so,
I can definitely relate to that as well.
That's where it's almost
sometimes
like
things like that are just
for me to do it.
Yeah, things like that a human will need to step in to make changes, because the AI loop is just not working.
It's not working. Yeah.
And then so you mentioned a couple of things. So feed the context, right, to the AI, to from experienced engineers to help AI to get on board with the code base, and also adapt learning engineering teams wise, like they have to improve their productivity with this. But also you mentioned context windows. I guess like you mentioned about memory and knowledge management. So is that what you're referring to, or
that's
do
correct.
you use any tools?
It's memory knowledge management. That's really a big thing. 100%.
Yeah. So one of the questions that my audience was asking on my community post was, how do you? Maybe we already answered this question, but how do you test the code the AI writes? How do you update it later without creating a huge mess?
Yeah. I use all of the above, right? I also use, like I said earlier, I'll use another AI to do code review, and ultimately somebody has to be the arbiter of the decision making, of deciding whether this is production ready or not production ready, and this is where you have to trust your team, you have to trust your engineering team, but then also you have to gauge it too and go like, the thing that's so disruptive about this is that it will challenge engineers, especially engineers that are very, very, very smart. Because the normal inclination of an engineer is that I know how to do this, and I'm not going to be bested by a machine. Where my response to that is like, wait a minute, this thing understands context on so many various different levels that there's no way that there will be things that it will know. Just to go into React 19, we use React 19 for the platform, and all the best practices of React 19, it just came out. Like, what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things that it will just have knowledge base that's just very hard to beat. So at the end of the day, you kind of have to gauge at some point and go like, okay, well, I'm kind of have to go with AI on this because I feel like, okay, this is a way to go. At least we should look at this. Then but at the same time, it's either Matt will push back vehemently, or after a couple of days he'll go like, okay, Joe, yeah, I think that it's right, we should go in this direction. But it's just like anything else, somebody has to make a final decision.
True. Yeah, so it must be an experienced person, knows what they're talking about.
Correct.
Right, step in to do this. But what about, I was curious to know about the testing part, like the test coverage. Normal applications have like unit testing, end-to-end testings, some integration testings maybe.
Yeah.
But in terms of, making sure that whenever you make a Git merge, right, like a version controls from this new feature added to the main branch or the master branch.
Right.
How do you ensure that there are no bugs, right? There are no security issues or any things that prevent or release to the production? Like, is there any other testings that you find really useful for doing vibe coding, for doing AI development or AI coding development?
Well, the good thing about AI is it can write tests as it writes features.
Right. But is there any testing strategies that you think are really useful?
We have a QA team in that Studio Pro. So we have a QA team that QAs all of our apps before they go into production. So it's definitely an advantage that we have in that, this is going through our normal, development and deploy pipeline, right? Running through QA. Yeah, and we also have automated deploy tests.
What is the testing strategy like you guys use or you guys follow? Like we have to achieve this test coverage score, or there's certain things we look for, or this is the plan that we use whenever there's a new feature released.
Yeah, it's all of the above. Yeah, it's all of that. Yeah, 100%. And mind you, again, a big part of this is supported by our API. In many ways, these apps are all just user experience apps, right? All the heavy lifting logic of the data that's coming into it is running through our API. And our API has been tried and tested for 15 years, and that has all sorts of deploy, anytime we iterate on it. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So, well, I wanted to, kind of wrap this up a bit and want to talk about, what are you most excited about right now? And what's the next big thing that you see coming in the space? Looking at what we discussed so far, about moving from traditional development to AI coding, and then learn about how we can be able to break task in big plan into small tasks that's more that's easy to be executed by AI. Also, so we went over the business results, the impact that it made from switching from traditional development to AI coding. What are some challenges that we face with AI coding? So what do you think, the next big thing that you see coming in this space?
Yeah, so there's so many aspects of it that I'm really excited about. The marketing aspect of it is something that I'm really super excited about right now. At the end of the day, this is a supply and demand business, so we need to drive audiences and make it sticky. So, the experience within it is what's going to make it sticky. The content is what's going to make it sticky. But I really feel that, what I'm really super excited about is what I mentioned earlier. This is still the collision between, entertainment and technology, and I feel like we just had an additional tool now that will help that communication bridge the gap between those two camps even more. Where I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are when we first started, I'll give you an analogy from 15 years ago when we started this business, and I was still in post-production, and we were actually doing webisodes. I don't know if you remember webisodes back in the day, when YouTube first came out, everybody was making these mini series that looked like series on TV, but they were only 5 minutes long, and they were just uploading them on YouTube, all fully produced, wonderful stuff. We actually dabbled into that and won an award with YouTube and Sundance way back in the day. But an analogy We had an agent. We were represented by an agency at that point, and the agent said something so profound. It's like, film or theater is an actor's medium, right? That's where the actor reigns supreme. Movies is a director's medium. That's where the director really is the person in charge of what goes into a movie. Television is a writer's medium, and online streaming is a producer's medium, So a producer, somebody who's able to create stuff. And now I feel like where we are right now, where we're entering, it's the vibe coders medium. I think somebody who's able to really bridge the gap now between the creative way that you need to interface with AI and, being able to spit out something, through tech, really, that's a really incredible user experience. I think those are the kind of people that it's going to be really exciting to see what they do in this space.
Yeah, this is very exciting for sure. I think, when you mentioned about the vibe marketing thing, it's game changing as well. I think there's a lot of demand, a lot of tools right now. This is a very interesting space.
Very interesting space.
Yeah. Well, this has been really awesome, and thanks for sharing the playbook with us.
Well, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe, for your time.
Like I said, I was inspired by you too, man. So
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
so
you were part of my education.
Yeah, for people who are curious, want to learn more, where can people find you or find relevant information about this?
Yeah, I'm in LinkedIn. Joe Pascual. Studio Pro is our streaming technology, and come visit chillfree.tv and watch some movies and tell us what you think. We're going to be we just merged with a content company, so we're expanding our library of movies and television shows on Chillfree. So that's going to be very exciting too, to have even better content and more content on the platform. So check us out there.
Awesome. Well, we'll check it out. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching, and let us know in the comments what's your take on vibe coding and what's your biggest takeaway from this podcast. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.